Welcome to the Alternative Dog Moms podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom for more than 10 years. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I began raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott from the Believe in Dog podcast. For more than 10 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned in case it could help you too. As the Alternative Dog Moms, Kimberly and I are bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and the brilliant people we're meeting along the way. Now let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin. How's it going?
Oh, it's going good here. It was below freezing last week, but it's almost 50 today. So welcome to winter in the mid-Atlantic. Yeah. So we are joined today by a Kim. So we will differentiate as Kim and Kimberly. So we are joined by Kim Stevens, the National Sales Director for the Ion Biome Intelligence of Nature Company. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Erin and Kimberly. It's great to be here.
We have so much to talk to you about. We both use your products for pets and for ourselves, I think. And, we always love hearing the origin story. And so I know you mentioned you have been with the company for 9 years, which seems like a pretty long time. I don't know how long they've been around, but can you tell us a little about the background of the company and how you got involved?
Absolutely. So it's 9 years is almost as long as Ion has been around. We launched in September of 2014 at Expo West with the Ion Gut Support. Then it was known as Restore for gut health. And so we've gone through a couple iterations. We became Ion Biome in between Restore, and now we're Intelligence of Nature. We let that Ion portion of the Ion Biome name kind of lead us through into the future, because that is an acronym for, Ion is the acronym for Intelligence of Nature. And we really feel like that is encompassing what is in our products, or at least our core line of the support line. So we love that name and the meaning behind it. But I guess the company started with our founder, Dr. Zach Bush. He was a cancer researcher at the University of Virginia for many years and was under an NIH grant to research a particular chemotherapy. He had discovered an intelligent form of chemotherapy isolated from a vitamin A molecule. And so he did several years of research in the university level on this molecule. And years later, things happened. He left academia. The 2008 financial crash happened and he lost his funding for that NIH grant. And he ended up leaving academia and starting a holistic clinic out in rural Charlottesville here, about 30 minutes outside of the town proper, Charlottesville. But it's a very rural area, a lot of farmers out there, not a lot of grocery stores, kind of a food desert kind of situation. And so he found himself dealing with a lot of chronic issues, but also gut issues. And he was taking this approach of, holistic, vegan, juicing them, raw diet type of approach. And, a good amount of his patients were getting better, but there was also a certain subset of them that were actually getting worse. Their inflammation was going up as a result of this kind of raw, healthy food diet. And then he started looking further at why this may be happening, looking at the soil and what we may be getting through or not getting through our food these days, that could potentially be causing these inflammation markers to actually go up. What he discovered through a series of happy accidents, I guess, the universe working behind the scenes, was that there were the same molecule he had been researching as this chemotherapy, the same structure of molecule was in the soil. And he was reading a soil science paper and saw this molecular structure there that he had very similar to what he'd been researching in academia, and realized that what he was actually studying all that time was not an isolate just from vitamin A. There were millions of variations of these molecular structures. They're a carbon backbone with different binding sites on them that actually are in our soil as the means of communication for the microbiome. Those molecules are our bacteria, our microbiome's vocabulary, if you will. And so that kind of triggered the light bulb moment of, well, at first he thought, what is chemotherapy doing in soil? And then he, through more research, realized that it wasn't chemotherapy, that it was these molecules that were helping to facilitate normal cell turnover when they were there, when they were able to inform that damaged cell that you are damaged and it's time for you to go and be replaced by a healthy stem cell. And so it was this really beautiful demonstration of how nature is supposed to work when there is imbalance in the system.
Intelligence of nature.
Exactly. The intelligence is already there. We know that, and we so value and are humbled by that, the brilliance that's there, and we just want to let that lead. We just want to tap into it as a brand, and let that intelligence that already exists there kind of lead the way, lead us back to our optimal health.
I love that story.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show there's so many things in nature that we've forgotten as a species, of how we can heal and treat ourselves. And seeing so many people coming back to that is so, I love it.
And honestly, we've probably only forgotten it in like the last 100 years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. It's only been really since, according to Zach, it's since the world wars and us replacing our back home freedom gardens with petroleum products and our soil. But even before that, starting to till the soil and really break up that microbiome that exists there and turning it over. We're killing it just by doing that. But then you add in all these chemical inputs, and it's just destroying the microbial life there, which is we are here because of that microbial life. We would not exist if it did not come before us and foster that life to be possible. And so we really need to stop looking at it as an enemy or something we need to micromanage, and really tap into the brilliance and what its purpose is.
So my question is, when exactly did you guys connect? Because you started with the human line. When did you say, hey, dogs or, pets? Like, did someone get a dog?
Yeah.
Did someone adopt a dog?
Our founders, we have many dog lovers in our company. When we were in the office pre-COVID, we had a dog-friendly work environment, so it was not uncommon for people to bring their dogs with them to work. Interacting with animals is one of the best ways to expand your microbiome, and so we love that way of increasing and your diversity in your gut. But I don't actually know whose idea, how the impetus behind us creating a pet formula, aside from people possibly giving it to their animals and seeing the benefits of the human formula on their animals and then asking us for one. But we did launch the pet version originally under the name LumaPet. When we were Restore, the pet line was called LumaPet. And that happened, I want to say in 2016 or 2017 is when we released that product. The only difference in it from the human formula is the addition of silicon. And that's a very bioavailable form of silicon that we put in there to help with their skin and coat. It's just notoriously great for that stuff. Not that it's not great for humans, but we found it particularly beneficial in this formula for animals. And we've just had the most incredible feedback from both pet parents and veterinarians throughout the years of their results when they just start with this very foundational product that lays the groundwork for you to build off of with all the other things you're doing, the raw foods and the probiotics, if you use them, those things are really going to go by the wayside if they don't have the proper gut structure to help facilitate that microbiome growth.
So I wanted to give you a little bit of my experience of how the product came on the radar for me. And it was 5 years ago, my dog Penny was having a major health crisis, and it was basically a gut health crisis. And because I'm so nerdy about all of this stuff, for fun, one day I had done an animal biome test. Are you familiar with those?
I've heard of them for humans and for animals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so fast forward a few months later, she started developing chronic UTI. And so she was put on 4 different courses of antibiotics within a year's time, and then developed a major skin crisis. And we switched veterinarians. And our new vet, who I still work with today, she wanted to do an animal biome test. And so I actually had kind of before and after proof of how all of these antibiotics had destroyed her gut biome. And so the first thing that my vet said to me, one of the very first things at the very first appointment with her, was we introduced the Ion Biome pet product for her to help with this gut restoration. And so it's not a probiotic. It's not like a digestive enzyme. My understanding is it's a form of like the humic and fulvic acids. And so I was wondering, could you just tell us a little about first what those are, and then second, like their role in healing gut health?
Absolutely. So the benefits of humic substances have been touted for years now. Humic molecules are large carbon molecules that both humic and fulvic molecules, let me start there, are created by bacteria, by microbiome, when they break down plant and animal matter in the soil. They leave behind these bacterial metabolites, if you will. So they're not bacteria specifically, but they are made by bacteria. And these fulvic and humic molecules are really, I like to think of them as messenger molecules or transporters primarily. So they're really good at grabbing on to information or beneficial compounds or not beneficial compounds. They're really good at chelating and delivering things to where they need to go. So humic molecules are anywhere from 10 to 100 times larger than fulvic molecules. So humic molecules can grab onto more things. They can grab onto multiple fulvic molecules and bring them to the areas of the body that they're needed. Fulvic molecules are the ones that are small enough to transit intercellularly. So they can bring that information or those nutrients into the cell and deliver them exactly where they need to be. Humic molecules are too large to do that, but they do play a role in that transporting of information. So I really like to think of these metabolites as the vocabulary or the language of the microbiome, because each species of microbiome or bacteria in our environment, we don't even know how many species there are. Best case estimates, it's 30 to 40,000 nowadays. But each species is, as they break down that plant and animal matter, they're making their own unique variation of this carbon molecule. And each species uses that as their species-specific word or language to communicate amongst their own species, but also to let everybody else know around them how many of them there are. And this is how that balance is achieved in the microbiome. If you have an abundance of, say, candida or, lactobacillus or whatever, if you're taking probiotics, that is going to be the dominant language or the dominant message that's heard in the gut when you have an overabundance of a specific bacteria. And so it's really the key is to allowing that balance to be achieved. The checks and balances exist, again, in that intelligent environment. And we really want to, instead of micromanage the species that are present, we feel it's a far superior approach to give the information that the microbiome uses to communicate effectively to it and let it balance itself. And so that's really the magic of Ion, is that it is providing kind of this missing link of communication and transporting the information to where it needs to be. Ion is both humic and fulvic molecules, and you'll see on our label it says humic extract, and that's because the fulvic molecules are within the humic layer, and so that humic extract encompasses both humic and fulvic molecules in the in that term. But primarily in ion are the fulvic molecules. There are humic molecules, but it's primarily the fulvic molecules that are really doing the magic of delivering those nutrients where they need to go, increasing their bioavailability on the way, latching on to toxins if they encounter them. And what's beautiful about fulvic is when it grabs onto a toxin, it makes it inert. And so it gets it out of the body before it can do any more harm. And then they're just facilitating that overall communication amongst all species in the body so that the inherent balance will be achieved.
And I always hear of those two things together. Are humic and fulvic acid like always found together? And where do they actually are sourced from?
Yeah. So our source, it's always going to come from soil. Humic and fulvic are a layer, a portion of the soil. It's kind of a compression breakdown within the peat layer of soil, is where humic materials fall. I would say from what I know of these materials that you're pretty much always going to have some humic molecules, even in a supplement that says it's solely fulvic. Again, I could be wrong about that. There could be filtration systems it's possible to filter out those larger humic molecules and it only be fulvic molecules, but they play so well together that I feel like it's almost inherent that you would want a little bit of the humates to carry those smaller fulvates where they need to be. But that's just my knowledge of humic and fulvic.
That explains why it's different than probiotics or fermented foods. It's just, because I think that's confusion. There's so many things, especially since gut health is such a huge topic, both in the human and pet world. There are all these things coming at us. And so this felt like, because, when we think of gut, we pretty much only think of probiotics and things surrounding probiotics. We actually many of us don't know about the benefits of humic acid. I've seen already soil supplements for dogs, but again, people think that, that's just another probiotic, or it's a soil supplement that is, I should say it's a probiotic masquerading as a soil supplement. It's just like, we're so confused about what exactly we should be giving our dogs. And there's this fear of over supplementation.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that being said, this is something that we can give in the same meal as a probiotic.
It is. We don't know of any contraindications with this product and any other supplements or products or medications even that you would be using, aside from blood level monitored medications. If and this is my novice, I don't even know if that exists in animals, but that is a disclaimer we give to our human side of business, is that if you're on a blood level monitored medication, that you would want to have that checked, because these molecules work. I mentioned it briefly, but there's 4 really fundamental ways that these molecules work. And this is kind of differentiating how they work from probiotics. So probiotics are, you're taking a species of bacteria, you're guessing what species the gut needs in billions of copies, and you're putting a whole lot of that bacteria in and hoping that it, achieves balance somehow. But with ion, we're just putting, again, those transporter messenger molecules back into the gut. And what we see happen when those go into that biologic environment, first and foremost, is they act as a free radical, or act as a antioxidant for free radicals. So as soon as you take ion, or as soon as you give it to your pet, it's quenching any free radicals that it encounters immediately. And that's one of the ways that it's able to reinforce the gut lining so well, is that those chemicals that we ingest, like glyphosates, are free radicals, and they will damage the tight junctions through that oxidation process. And so ion is able to act as a free radical scavenger and an antioxidant, and quench those free radicals. But even more importantly, after 2 weeks of time, at least in our human trials, we observed that there was a 53% increase in the body's production of glutathione. Glutathione being your body's most important and most prevalent antioxidant. It is It is the one that does the majority of the work on the antioxidant front in the body. And so if we can get the body to increase its own defenses, that's far superior than any sort of supplementation you're going to give them. And then additionally, it has the ability to grab onto the nutrients and the vitamins and from the healthy foods you're giving your animals and get them into the cells. It makes them more bioavailable and more absorbable on the way. So you're actually increasing your dog's nutrient absorption from all of that good stuff you're giving him just by adding ion gut support for pectin. And then conversely, it's grabbing onto any toxins or anything unuseful that it might find and preventing it from doing any more harm, getting it out of the body in a gentle detox fashion. And so it's really this very simple product that you can add into your dog's health regimen that is going to help build the gut lining and the kidney membrane, because that's really where our animals see a lot of their damage from those toxins, is not so much at the gut lining, but more so in the kidneys. And so it's going to reinforce those vital membranes, but also help them absorb even more of the beneficial things they're getting and not be as damaged by the things that might not be good for them.
As you were talking, I was thinking of just like a popular nightclub where Ion is both the hostess and the bouncer and the wait staff and the bartenders. So it's basically delivering, dishes to tables and kicking out the riffraff. And
it's so funny because that is the analogy that I often use, is like, it's like the best wait staff you've ever experienced. It's bringing you exactly what you want before you have to ask for it, maybe before you even think of it. And it's on, while it's there, it's taking away anything you don't need, anything that might be bad for you that could hurt. And you don't have to say a thing. It's just doing what you want it to do, or what it's meant to do. I love that analogy, that thought process. We might actually have to make a commercial about that one.
Well, there's a creator, I can't remember his name right now, but he's so funny. And he has a lot of videos where he plays different parts of the body, like the internal structure. And so that is, as you were talking, I was like, I wonder, I need to figure out his name so I can go find one of those videos, because this is exactly that's pretty exciting. And what I love about it is that it looks like water. And it doesn't, it's not a powder, it's a liquid. It looks like water. It doesn't have a taste to it.
It's like mildly like salty.
Yeah. And very much so. So it's just sort of like, because I drink 2 of these 40-ounce mugs of water a day. And so I just put it in my water.
Yeah.
I just add it to my dog's meals. And, but I was wondering 2 things. One, as far as giving it to our dogs, how much and how often?
And should you start like slow and build up kind of thing?
Yeah. I would say it's as variable as it is with humans. So like for me, for example, I'm a relatively healthy person. I started taking Ion at full dose, no problem. Really it wasn't like I hit me over the head results from it. It wasn't until I stopped taking it, after taking it for a while, that I noticed a difference. And I was like, oh, it was doing something. And so for some people, it's not going to be extremely noticeable. Same way with animals. If your animal is generally healthy, getting a good diet, getting outdoor play in clean, non-toxic environments, then you can probably start at the regular weight-based recommendation for your dog and straight out the gate do normal usage. That said, if your dog has had some chronic health issues, if they've struggled with their gut health, if they've been on probiotics for a long time, those are all indications of a situation where you may want to start slowly and allow their gut to catch up to this increased information. And so the weight-based recommendations are on the bottle. They're also on our website, intelligenceofnature.com. If you want to look there, you can see what your dog would need to take. I would say my dog, we have 3 currently, but I would say probably a 16-ounce bottle and a half is what it takes for us to give all 3 of our dogs feedings twice a day, or using it twice a day with them at feeding time.
Yeah, I think with Penny, we had started really slow because she had a lot going on. But like you said, we actually did notice a difference in like the quality of her poop when we
Uh-huh.
stopped using it. And it was like, oh, yep, we're going to keep using that. And
Yeah.
when we adopted, I have Nessie on the floor snoring next to me. I call her my new kid. She's been with us a little over a year now, but it was one of the first things that I started adding to her because she had come through the shelter system with, vaccines and, chemical treatments and flea tick and all of that, and so it was like, oh, I need a fresh bottle to make sure, we're taking care of her like right from the start. It's like one of my like go-to things when you're bringing that new dog in the house.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I love that. And it really is like, it's a relatively new area of knowledge for the populace. This whole gut health conversations. It's just kind of emerging into mainstream discussion. But really, once we realize that our gut health and more importantly, our gut lining structure is so imperative to the functioning of the rest of our body because that's one of the amazing benefits that Ion has been able to prove through peer-reviewed study is that within minutes of taking Ion, it has the ability to reinforce those tight junctions that hold the gut lining together, even if there are toxins present. So we've done these studies even with exposing the gut to glyphosate or gluten or the things that typically degrade those tight junctions. And if Ion and this intelligence is present beforehand, that tight junction damage doesn't happen. And when you realize that you have to have those tight junctions intact for there to be any regulation of the microbiome, the microbiome has to grow and thrive in that biofilm. And without those tight junctions, that biofilm doesn't grow. And so you don't have a healthy place for your microbiome to grow and thrive and diversify in if you don't have tight junctions. Not to mention, if you don't have those tight junctions, your immune system or your animal's immune system is under constant assault because right on the other side of that gut membrane is a majority of our immune system. And so it's just triggers this chronic, autoimmune type behavior at the immune system level where it's just in hyperdrive all the time.
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I wanted to talk about the glyphosate issue and it's commonly known as Roundup, these Roundup ready crops, almost all of the like corn and wheat and soy and
Yes.
is basically being grown with built-in pesticides. And then we all wonder why our gut lining and our dog's gut lining are just being decimated and why we all have cancer and chronic illness and autoimmune disease.
I know.
And so it does sound like you guys have done a lot of research around showing how Ion can help protect you from it. So even like it can help, I guess, repair damage and help prevent new damage.
Yeah. So as a supplement, we can't legally say that we repair or prevent anything, but we are allowed to make structure function claims. And so that was one of our first areas of study is how were these molecules affecting the structure and or function of the gut lining. And so we looked at, we grew the gut lining under a microscope. And then we tested what these chemicals, namely glyphosate. And we also did the same study with gluten, but we used the protein breakdown called gliadin. That's actually the protein in gluten that affects the tight junctions. And so that's what we isolated and studied for these cell culture studies. But we grew the healthy cell membrane, and then we observed how much of these chemicals components it would take to degrade the tight junctions. And it takes very little of that particular chemical glyphosate you mentioned to damage the tight junctions. But if you have this information in the environment first, what does not happen when you experience exposure to those toxins is a degrading of the tight junctions. And so it's able to reinforce the systems that keep that membrane intact, Ion is, so that you don't get the damage to begin with. And that's really what you want to do as far as preventative health is concerned. If you can prevent the injury to begin with, it's so much better for your body from an cellular energy perspective than to try to heal it. And so that's really where we think the power and one of the biggest benefits of ion is because this chemical glyphosate, which just to give you a little brief history on that compound, it was originally patented as an herbicide and released under the brand name Roundup and marketed to, home gardeners as a way to get rid of those dandelions, those pesky weeds that nobody wants growing in your driveway. But meanwhile, they're super medicinal. But that was really where it got its fame, was marketed to the home gardener. But in I want to say it was in the 80s. It could have been the early 90s. It went off patent because they kept renewing this patent. They patented it as an herbicide. Their final patent was as a broad spectrum antimicrobial. So it is actually patented as an antibiotic because it kills any single cell organism it touches. It's one of the most toxic compounds that I'm aware of that exists in this world. Nothing can really withstand its toxicity. And, we started spraying these compounds when it went off patent. Every chemical company in the world started marketing it off brand as glyphosate, no longer under the brand name Roundup. But it is the most widely used chemical in our food supply. We use some 300 million pounds per year in this country alone. And if you do the math, that's enough for a pound for every man, woman, and child, not to mention the animals. But our poor animals, we get exposed to super high levels of this through our food supply, but also just through the environment because they're spraying so much of this chemical. And because it's water soluble, which is a unique aspect of this particular compound, once it's sprayed, it is able to get into the water system. And so it will permeate groundwater, it will evaporate, it will rain back down on us. So even your organic crops that you're paying, top dollar for could potentially be getting exposed to some levels of glyphosate through this water table. And this chemical is just so toxic that it's so pervasive in our environment nowadays. 75% of air and rainwater samples are testing positive. The average American is walking around with way more glyphosate in our urine than is even allowed to be in EU tap water. So it's so prevalent in this country that the only thing we can do at this point is protect ourselves from the damage of it while we work to encourage our politicians and our farmers and our agriculture companies to stop using this chemical. We have to take it into our own hands to protect ourselves and our loved ones from the damage of it.
That's just frightening.
I get so disgusted. I know.
It is infuriating.
Because, it's like we're constantly trying to stay ahead of the thing. I mean, and it's so funny because as you were talking, I was thinking, and that's why I grow my garden. And after I finished that thought, you were like, and even you're organic. And I'm just like, yes, because it rains here in the Pacific Northwest.
I know.
My beautiful organic garden.
I know. You're doing the best you can, and you're going to minimize your exposure by what you're doing. And that's really what we, that's the best we can do. Minimize exposure and then protect against any exposure we're going to see. And luckily, there is something like ion on the market that is proven through third-party peer-reviewed studies that it does protect from that chemical.
Like, everybody should be shouting this from the rooftops.
Yeah. I agree.
It's funny because I only started taking it and buying it for my dogs because Erin had so many good things to say about it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I started this months ago.
That's a good friend there.
I guess that's why we have a podcast. It's our version of shouting from the rooftops, and everybody needs to know about this,
Absolutely. You're doing your part.
So the other thing that, is just going through my mind when we're talking about this is like just how depleted the soil is of nutrients and like the monoculture of farming where you're just going to grow the same crop over and over on the same piece of land over and over. And that's not how original farming was done. There was like this crop rotation and stuff. And actually, there's this farm where I get a lot of our meat from, where they do this whole like rotation of things and of animals too. Like they'll have the chickens come by after the cows have left the field, or things like this. It's been very fascinating to learn. So when you're sourcing this from the soil, like how do you make sure that like the soil you're working with is like a good source of the material?
That's a great question, because you're right. So much of the Earth's topsoils are considered dead. I think I read a study. Hopefully nobody's quoting me on this, but I don't think I'm wrong, that it was estimated that 97% of the Earth's soils are considered dead as far as from a microbial standpoint. And it's just increasing. And it's because of, our farming practices, over-tilling, spraying, inputs, and we're really doing a number on the microbiome in our soil, which is where we're meant to get the majority of our microbiome from, through our food. And so the soil that these molecules are stored in is 60 million years old. It is untouched by any chemical inputs, as far as we know. And none existed at that time. And it's the location that we source our raw material from is from the Southwest United States. It's called the Fruitland Formation. And it's a well-known formation of these, our humic deposit. Very rich in these molecules that we're after. And it's been deemed very clean source of this humic material. So there is humic material, veins of this all over the world, but this particular vein is very rich and very clean. And the reason it's so densely populated with this material is because when 60 million years ago, when the dinosaurs were on the earth, that area of the country was actually rainforest. And so there were plants, that grew to be the size of buildings, and animals that grew to be the size of skyscrapers from eating those plants alone. And so the microbiome diversity in that soil was so concentrated in something that would blow our minds these days. Like we don't have anything close to that on our planet today. And so the representation of those bacterial metabolites is so much broader than what we would be able to capture from any topsoil that's on the earth right now. So we're mining down into that 60 million year old layer, extracting those molecules that Mother Nature, in her grace, left for us, knowing we would come along and decimate everything one day and need her to save us, so that we could tap into that knowledge and fix the error of our ways.
This is like dinosaur juice.
It is. We actually had a kid's product for a while called Magic Dirt Water. And that we had a Brontosaurus was our mascot for that product.
It is like, I'm like tickled because my other mug is a dinosaur mug. It's actually a kid's mug, but my friend got it for me. I have a thing for dinosaurs. All my dog's toys are dinosaurs.
I love it. Well, that's, you're drinking some level of dinosaur water, I guess.
Oh my gosh, this is just fascinating and like angering when you think about it, that like what we've done to the earth in the last 100 and so years.
I feel like we need to forgive ourselves for thinking so highly of our intelligence.
I know, right?
At some point, we all need to realize that we're not as smart as we thought we were. And maybe we should look at what's been around us and existing and sustaining for millions of years, maybe before us, before we were even here.
So, and I just appreciate the fact that I think, just even leaning on just forgiving ourselves, I've had 2 dogs pass from cancer. And when that happens, when you get the cancer diagnosis after you've been feeding raw, you have minimal vaccinations, you think you're doing every single thing right. And finding something that I can add to my dog's diet that isn't going to, one, break the bank, that isn't going to, where I'm not going to be fighting with my dogs about whether or not they're going to eat their food now. And it's so simple, is just, to me, a relief, because I now have an 11-year-old. She's all white in the face and she's doing really, really well. And I love the fact that she is benefiting from everything that I've learned, because instead of looking at it as, damn it, why didn't I know this? It's just sort of like the two dogs that I lost because of that journey. It led me to a product like yours and others. And I think,
Yeah.
were we speaking to Rob Ryan? Isn't he the one that
Yes, he said.
Yeah, because he's
Yeah.
the one that mentioned Ion
Oh,
to
we
that,
love Rob.
and that's why. And Erin was like, "Oh yeah, I know." Erin was like old school. It's like, "Oh yeah, I know about. I have that." And I'm just like, "What is this magical thing? What are you
Oh,
talking about?" And I recently saw something on social media where someone was showing the supplements that they add to a meal, and it was Ion, and it was one of the Gussie Gut products, and it was a third thing, and I don't remember what the third thing was, but I was so excited to see it because I was like, oh, I do that too.
oh, that's amazing. We love Rob. We'll have to send him a thank you for mentioning us. He's such a proponent of ours and such a great partner. And that, yeah, he's got a great product too. And that is the superior way to getting good bacteria in your dog's diet, in your own diet, is through these fermented foods, but also getting in touch with different animals and environments, and getting out into the forest and letting your dog go for a swim in the creek. Like, all of that helps him expand his microbiome just as much as it helps us by petting them after they've been in the creek to
Yeah.
expand our own. So yeah, I can relate to you. I just it was actually the year anniversary 4 days ago of the date we had to put our dog down. He had got a very aggressive melanoma and was gone within 3 months. But it was so hard because we had thought we had done everything right. I'm the daughter of a chiropractor. I've never been vaccinated. And so I'm like, I would have thought that I would have known to do everything right, but there was a large part that I didn't know. And it's not my fault. It's just, what we're taught. And if you don't really question and seek out what you're told, you don't always find those answers. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I didn't realize that I should be seeking out alternative information soon enough. But those dogs they're playing a role in their own way of
Teaching
showing you the
us.
way so that you can correct things.
And I think that's what's so exciting to see you in Chewy, because that's the other problem, is that a lot of this stuff isn't mainstream. And so many people are dealing with mainstream. They go to their vets, a lot of vets aren't talking about these type of things, but Chewy.com is about as mainstream as it comes. And so me being able to tell someone about this product that I'm using for my dogs, if I can also follow up with, you can get it on Chewy, that is like, makes it a little more accessible to people, where they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll give this a try. So
Yes.
congratulations to that.
Thank you so much. I was that has been on our radar for a long time, but I feel like it speaks volumes about our product in that they reached out to us
Oh,
to ask us to onboard and be available on their site. And so I of course, yes, of course, that was a big yes, but it was an honor to have them be the one to initiate that.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I was curious if you have any information about, like, I knew like my veterinarian's very active in the holistic integrative space. Like, are you getting a reception from like the more mainstream veterinary community wanting to try this or recommend this? Or have you ever had any experience with that going well or the opposite?
Yeah, I would say we have. I'd say there's a certain segment of kind of mainstream or allopathic traditional vets that are warming up to kind of the information that's out there about gut health and about the microbiome and the importance of nurturing it and all the things that are degrading it. I would say the majority of our network is leans towards the integrative and holistic space. Dr. Judy Morgan has been somebody that we've worked with. Dr. Marlene Siegel, she's somebody in Florida who she's amazing. She's got her own raw food pet line, but she was an ambassador for us for a long time, and she's had the most incredible results with her own pet patients that she's given lectures on at conference some stuff that I wouldn't be able to say as an employee of the company, but if anybody knows her or would like to, ask her about her experience with Ion, she's had some profound experiences with her pet patients. But yeah, I would say, the same as our human practitioners, we tend to have more traction in the more holistic side of things than traditional. But there's a good amount of traditional docs that are now coming around to this information as well as it spreads.
That's wonderful to hear. Just because I feel like, well, if you're going to admit that a product like this works and is needed, then you have to admit that like the standard American diet and pet diet are not super healthy. And that's a whole can of worms,
Right. Baby steps.
So is there any science or research that's been done specifically around like the pet product or on dogs?
Yeah, we have one study. It's written up as a white paper, and that's available on our website. And so I mentioned earlier about the impact of these chemicals, namely glyphosate, on our animals versus on us. And we definitely see the direct injury at the gut lining first and foremost in humans. The animals, while they do see injury at their gut lining, the majority of the damage happens in their kidneys. And that's really, like I mentioned, glyphosate is a water-soluble compound. And so with most herbicides or pesticides we may ingest, most of them are fat-soluble. And so they'll be locked away by a fat cell where they can't do any harm. But glyphosate being water-soluble, it's able to break apart that gut membrane first, gets into the bloodstream, flows throughout the body, touching every other membrane and cell on its way. And then finally, it has to be processed by the kidneys to be excreted. And so those kidneys are having to process those toxins. And, for humans, I told you we have 300 million pounds of this chemical dumped in our food supply, but our poor animals, the food that's been tested for this chemical, they face dogs, it is huge. The amount of chemicals that is in our dogs' food is up to 2 times as much as what humans are exposed to. 32 times. And it takes, I'm telling you, I'm not joking when I tell you it takes the most minuscule amount of this compound to do that kind of damage. So 32 times what we're exposed to is so completely toxic. I feel so bad for these animals. And with cats, they're looking at 16 times what humans are exposed to on the average. And so it is vitally important because they're getting majority of the time the byproduct of our factory farming processing, and they're not getting good stuff. It's really important that we can A, protect from the compounds that they may be exposed to, and B, facilitate any sort of absorption of anything beneficial in that product. And that's why we're seeing the levels of disease in our animals these days mimicking those of their human, owners. It's the same situation. It's the same process of these chemicals just completely tearing apart the defenses of the body and then overwhelming the immune system so it cannot keep up. But to answer your question on our study with the animals, we did a study to look at the benefit of ion on the kidney tubule cells. And the renal tubule cells in humans are the most sensitive cells in the body. And so that's really a good measure of how safe a product is as well. If it doesn't damage kidney cells, then it is fairly safe. It's deemed safe to take. And with our kidneys, with our renal tubule cell studies with this ion gut support for pets, we saw huge increases in their kidney tubule formation over the human formula. And so we tested both how the human formula, how their cells responded to the human formula, and then conversely, how it responded to this pet formula that has the addition of the silicone. And it does seem to increase the signaling capacity to those renal tubule cells, which again is where they need a good bit of that support. And so we have that study on our website under our science page if you want to go look at that. It is called Terahydrite Promotes Tight Junction Production in Kidney Tubules Across 6 Species. So you can see the results in mice, rats, and humans, because we wanted to show that it wasn't the same effect in humans as it was in animals for humans to take the pet formula. And then cows, dogs, and cats as well, you can see there.
Wonderful. I'll make sure we have a link in the show notes for all the other nerds who are going to go look that up like I am. So in addition to the liquid formula that you can drink, are there any other ones that I'm not thinking of right now?
We do have an amazing skin support product. It is the same kind of base formula as what we've been talking about, that fulvic blend that we start with for our support line. The skin support product has the addition of some bioavailable microminerals that are notorious for benefiting skin health. And this is a human product. So I will tell you, especially you ladies out there who are trying to maintain your youth, it has been shown in clinical studies. So we did deep derm cam imaging studies with 26 participants over 12 weeks time. And in just 6 weeks time, we had statistically significant reduction in 6 of the 10 biomarkers of skin aging. So wrinkles, brown spots, pigmentation, all of that good stuff. So it is literally kind of like a fountain of youth for your skin. I swear by it. As a middle 40s woman, I want to maintain the mostly wrinkle-free skin that I have. But it's an amazing product. Again, it's a foundational product that you want to use before you do anything else. So that's the same with Ion Gut Support for Pets. You want to give them Ion first and then layer on anything else. If you're giving that at food time, maybe that's at the same time, but you want to make sure that you're laying the foundation or providing the tools to lay the foundation at that gut membrane. The same with the gut support for humans. It's providing that solid foundation for us to build from with any other tools in our toolbox.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that'll be released soon that we can?
Oh, well, it's not a pet product, but we have a whole new line of plus line products out. So for any of you pet parents out there that are struggling with your gut health, namely your immune function, your mental clarity, or your sleep quality as a result of the gut dysfunction, those products are really going to help in a very natural way to support those targeted issues. And they pair and work synergistically with each other, and they work synergistically with our gut support to enhance their benefits in their absorption.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to
You got to try
out.
Yeah, I saw those and I was so excited about the sleep one because even though I actually do get really good sleep, once I started taking care of myself, my sleep improved amazingly. Another thing, surprisingly to me, apparently, and only me, a nice new mattress does wonders. But yeah, it's like I saw those because I set up my recurring order and was looking for, what else do I need to add to the recurring order? But I didn't add them. But I was like, oh,
it has been the most popular seller of the 3 so far is that restful sleep. I had no idea how many people in this country struggled with their sleep. I'm not
surprised. We live in a world of doom scrolling.
Yeah. And everybody's blue light inundated. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me. I just thought the focused mind would be the most popular one. But it's by far the restful sleep. And what's beautiful about the whole line is that they are completely natural adaptogens, botanicals, functional mushrooms, great ingredients. And they're in these compostable single serving packets. You can throw literally every bit of that packaging is garden compostable. So you can throw it in your compost pile and it breaks down. But that sleep formula, all of them are no sugar added. We use monk fruit as the sweetener. That sleep formula though is something that you don't see a lot for sleep supplements or products on the market, in that it's melatonin free. And so we're using L-tryptophan, which is your body's, that's why everybody gets a turkey coma after Thanksgiving, is from the L-tryptophan. And it's one of the amino acids that glyphosate is actually blocking from production in our plants where we're supposed to get it. And so we're not getting enough L-tryptophan, which is a natural sleep aid, painkiller amino acid to take care of those things in the body. So we're using chamomile, L-tryptophan, and some other natural components that really help the body get into that state of relaxing and being ready for sleep.
Wow.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh, this has been wonderful.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, ladies, so much for inviting me on.
Thank
Oh my
you.
gosh. We'll have links for everybody in the show notes so that they can check out their products for both their pets and for themselves. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kimberly.
Bye.
Bye-bye.